going to steal the moon!
Have you ever stolen anything in your life? Well, some of you might have taken, I don't know, $5 from your mom's purse without her knowing at least once in your life, but the act of lawlessness pales in comparison for what I have in store for you today. Today we're going to be talking about 10 of the biggest things ever stolen. Number 1 is probably the biggest heist of them all, so make sure you stay tuned for that one. With all that said and done, let's begin, shall we? Number 10. A Buddhist temple bell. Buddhists all over the world aim for one thing: enlightenment. Some Buddhists even go to such extremes as living a very frugal life, forsaking any and all material possessions. For Buddhists at a temple in Tacoma, Washington in 2015, enlightenment came, as usual, by letting go of material objects. Only this particular type of enlightenment was much more literal than usual, as it involved the loss of a 3,000-pound, 12-foot tall copper monastery bell. Police were baffled as to how the thieves managed the theft, due to the bell's enormous weight and size. The temple abbot speculated that the people who stole it wanted to make money, with no consideration for the significance of it and how important it is in the practice of Buddhism. Indeed, monks commonly use bells to signify the beginning of meditation, making them highly sacred to Buddhist monks. Some people speculate that the thieves melted the bell down and sold its weight in copper, but I highly doubt that. Most people think that the bell ended up fetching a lot of money in the black market, which is something I believe in far more. Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that'll take 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, and you will get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it really works. Number 9. An entire church. Keeping it in the religious theme, Christianity is a religion that has existed for more than 1,000 years. Now with that kind of history, you're going to be sure that it has amassed a great amount of treasure, both with monetary and historical value. In fact, most religious artifacts heists often involve one or more Christian relics or treasures. However, these are fairly small items and can easily be hidden. But in 2008, someone, or more likely a bunch of someones, were able to pull off a heist so epic that they made an entire building disappear. The building in question was an old, unused church in a village called Komarovo. It had stood there until about 1869, that is until thieves hauled it off brick by brick. Initially, the theft went unnoticed as they weren't using the church at the time. Moreover, it was located in a remote area of the town. Church officials had been considering resuming use of the building, but the plan was dismantled before their very eyes. Of course, they could still gather in the open-air foundations of the building every Sunday morning. In rural Russia, churches are targeted more often than you'd think, as religious icons and building materials can be sold off for profit. I like to think it all comes down to foul play between rival churches, but you'll have to ask the Pope on that one. Number 8. An 800-year-old tree. If there's one thing that seems impossible to steal, it's probably a tree. Because, well, roots and the fact that they are so massive and heavy that hauling one off isn't really an easy task. But if there's something that this next entry on our list should tell us, is that nothing is impossible to steal for a determined thief. The tree that was stolen in this entry was an 800-year-old red cedar tree which was happily spending its days in the Carmanah-Walbran Provincial Park in Vancouver Island, British Columbia. Although the height of the tree wasn't reported, its diameter was measured at 9 feet in diameter. Funny thing though, park rangers already knew a year before the tree went missing that someone was trying to steal it. They had come across the tree cut 80% of the way through with a chainsaw. Not wanting to leave this safety hazard upright, they hired professionals to finish the job, but they just left the trunk there, lying on the forest floor until eventually it was picked up. It is assumed it was by the people who tried to cut it in the first place, and this was also an entire year later. Number 7. An entire bridge. Yes, you heard me right. An entire bridge was successfully stolen in Russia. And of course it was Russia. This happened fairly recently as well, as the news only broke around mid-May of 2019. Located in a desolate area near the border of Finland in the Arctic region, the bridge was a crucial crossing for the Umba River and was formerly an active railway crossing. Russian authorities launched a criminal investigation into the disappearance of the nearly 62-ton, 75-foot-long span. Rumor has it that the bridge was dismantled by metal thieves for scrap. That's apparently a pretty big issue throughout the region. Now, an entire bridge being stolen is surely an isolated case, right? Well, not if it happened twice. A similar bridge was stolen in Khabarovsk in eastern Russia. This bridge was more than twice as heavy as the first one at 200 tons, but what's remarkable is that the thieves only needed one night to haul the middle bridge piece by piece. Number 6. A nuclear submarine. In 1968, Soviet submarine K-129 sank 16,000 feet to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, 1,600 miles northwest of Hawaii, for completely unknown reasons. At the time, Russian technology was unable to locate or retrieve the warhead-laden wreckage, but their Cold War rivals in the USA soon found out about the submarine's fate. Of course, Uncle Sam wasn't going to miss this opportunity to get their hands on a Soviet submarine laden with potentially useful intel, not to mention intact nuclear weaponry. To keep things hush-hush, they assigned the CIA to the case. In 1974, spending about $4 billion in adjusted dollars, the CIA had built a huge Gomar Explorer. This basically involved grafting a giant crane onto a ship to drag the submarine up to the surface. The procedure wasn't perfect, and parts of the submarine broke off during recovery and sank back down. However, the chunk the CIA caught on their expensive fishing trip did indeed contain nuclear torpedoes, as well as some of the sailors' bodies. Inquiries about the operation, which was initially presented to the public as nothing more than a manganese mining operation, had a surprising cultural outcome too. Covering the tracks of the operation led to the development of the phrase neither confirm nor deny. This is now known as the Glomar response after the name of the recovery vessel. Number 5. A Boeing 727. On May 25, 2003, 2 men casually boarded and flew off with a Boeing 727 right off the runway of Porto de Ferreiro Airport in Luanda, Angola. It wasn't given clearance to fly. It did not even radio air traffic control, it just flew off, never to be seen again. The FBI and the CIA searched the globe for years and couldn't find so much as in-flight peanuts. 2 men were spotted boarding the plane before it took off: American pilot and flight engineer Ben C. Padilla, and a mechanic from the Congo named John M. Mutantu. Padilla wasn't certified to fly a 727, much less the mechanic, but both were involved with renovations on the plane in the months before. Padilla's sister has stated that she thinks her brother was somehow coerced into stealing the plane, and is now held captive somewhere in the world. Others have speculated, based on the fact that Padilla was previously found guilty of fraud, that the theft was a money-making scheme. Whatever happened to the 727 is still one of aviation's greatest mysteries. Number 4. A dinosaur skeleton. I found this one very surprising while researching for this list. There is serious money to be made from dinosaur bones. I honestly didn't know about this one. The fossil trade is so lucrative, in fact, that some people resort to theft and smuggling just to get a huge payout. Probably one of the most well-known cases of this happening is the one that happened to Florida man Eric Procopi. The dinosaur in question was called the Tyrannosaurus bataar, a smaller, albeit not cuter, cousin of the more popular Tyrannosaurus rex. They're basically the same large, vicious carnivores with a big appetite and stubby hands, except for the size, of course. And much like its bigger cousin, the T. bataar skeleton does fetch quite a price at auctions, and in the black market. Procopi, a fossil dealer, admitted to stealing the skeleton from the Gobi Desert, smuggling it into the US and selling it at an auction for more than $1 million. Or rather, it would have sold for that amount if the feds didn't confiscate the bones. He was then sentenced to 3 months in jail, which to me is a pretty light sentence, actually. Number 3. A beach. Wait, really? At first, stealing an entire beach does seem improbable, but in a country like Jamaica, apparently anything can happen. Back in 2008, police officials were baffled how hundreds of tons of white sand disappeared from a future resort. They estimated that 500 truckloads of sand were taken, and they don't know who and how it was done without any witnesses. There have been a lot of theories on how and why this happened, though, primarily involving the construction industry. Some people speculate that other hotels and resorts being built at the time of the theft were somehow involved with the disappearance of the beach. Police have gone as far as testing other beaches for traces of the missing sand. Apparently, sand testing is a real thing, and they have found some of the stolen sand on different beaches located on the northern coast of Jamaica. So far, there are no suspects in sight, and no arrests have been made. Now it's time for the day's best pick. And today we'll be talking about a stolen ship, but definitely not in the way it is depicted in the photo. Do you really need me to tell you it's impossible to lift a fully loaded cargo ship just by using 4 helicopters? I guess not. It is possible for people to steal a massive ship, though, and the next entry is just an example of one such occurrence. Number 2. A fully loaded oil tanker. In 2017, Somali pirates managed to hijack a fully loaded oil tanker. The ship, called the Eris 13, had decided to take a time and fuel-saving shortcut through what's known as the Sokrota Gap. They soon regretted the shortcut after their ship got hijacked by local pirates. In a scenario reminiscent of a certain Tom Hanks film, ransom discussions soon began, regarding both the crew and the ship's contents. Once the pirates realized the tanker was under the employ of prominent Somali businessmen who Somali pirates tend to avoid tussling with, they released the crew and later the ship, surprisingly without ransom. This made their whole endeavor a complete waste of time, but at least nobody was hurt. Number 1. A mountaintop. There are thieves, and there are thieves who go above and beyond, and nothing epitomizes going above and beyond than mountains, and these thieves literally went above and beyond by, you guessed it, stealing a mountain. Okay, not the entire mountain though, just the top of it, which is still a feat by itself. The culprits were an entire village of people, all from the Humta village in eastern India. Locals slowly chipped away at the mountain to sell to property developers and use the earnings to feed their families. The village doesn't have much else in terms of industry, so people work 11 hours a day hewing the peak from a point into more of a stub. While this is in fact illegal, local authorities tend to turn a blind eye, as the mountain is one of the few sources of work in the area. A local businessman has even laid a claim of ownership upon the mountain in an attempt to remove the criminal edge from the operation, but the authenticity of the claim is questionable at best. Unless something changes, the locals will eventually have stolen an entire mountain. Would you be daring enough to try stealing any of the things we mentioned on this list? Let us know in the comment section down below. Want to watch more videos about amazing human achievements, legal or otherwise? Click on any of the videos you see on your screen. As always, thank you all for watching.